Here's what GraFfix says, and here's how dumb you are. Prove literally anything you've just mentioned. Don't use words. Present some evidence. See, here's how dumb you are, and here's what you don't understand. I'm not proving anything. I'm not trying to prove anything. You get it? I'm debunking their supposed proofs. See, GraFfix, you can't think. You lack the ability for logic. That's not my fault. Nothing I just said requires proof. It's demonstrable. I'm disproving their theories by showing reality. I don't have to prove the Nile River. You understand? It's a natural phenomenon. It doesn't require proof. It exists. And people can't think. People have lost the ability to think. The Nile River is a natural phenomenon. It exists. Its existence debunks their so-called proofs of the globe. You get it? Just because you can't think doesn't mean I can't think. It's a shame. You'll never get it. You'll never get it. You never will. And here's your red herring. Z, how does electricity work? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China, you idiot? He said you're also not debunking or disproving anything. as I'm actively debunking all of it. What does it matter how electricity works, dummy? Right, like Sovereign says, who's the burden of proof on? It's the one making the claim. You want to claim a model, especially a model that goes against all observable and objective demonstrable reality? You better be able to fucking prove it. There's no burden on me. I'm not presenting a model. They present the model. You're supporting their model. The burden's on you, GraFfix. That's what you don't understand. And what the hell does electricity have to do with any of this conversation? Because I could explain to you exactly how electricity works. But it's a red herring. It has nothing to do with this convo, idiot. Dumb. Oh, he's going to come up. He says drop the link. You've never come up to my show. Let's see if you have the balls to come up. Links in the chat for GraFfix and anybody else who wants to come up. Electricity. So this is where the dummy, like you're probably like an electrician or something. So you have probably an advanced knowledge of electricity. So you're going to want to come up and red herring me into an electricity conversation. Is that matters. And the reality is we can talk electricity. I'll destroy you there too. He says electricity is important because it's science, dumbass. Another idiot who's just going to personify science. Who's going to make a claim and make an argument and say, yeah, because computers exist. Please don't give me the article that says because computers exist and advanced technology, that means we've gone to the moon. That means space exists as presented, and you live on a dumb globe. Please don't make that article. Please. And it's time for a musical interlude as we wait for people to come on in. Come on up, everybody. Fill the backstage in. Come talk to your friend Z. You don't have to be shy. You're doing an open panel for a reason, so idiots like GraFfix can come up and show how dumb he is. All right, let's bring up GraFfix because he looks like he's driving somewhere, like to work or whatever. So let's bring him up. All right, GraFfix, welcome to the show. Why do you love your globe so much? Why do you love your globe?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Howdy. Yeah, you sound pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you've mistaken that entire aspect of me. I'm not firmly adhered to the entire globe principle. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is to acceptable.
Hold on. We We missed you over the last 10 seconds. You roboted out. Repeat what you said.
Okay. So I'm not firmly adhered to the entire principle that we live on a globe. I think you present a lot of very credible and just things that are definitely needed to be considered when accepting something like that as fact. It's one of the reasons why I'm here is to try to develop something, some sort of more firm understanding of what really is happening around us. Just one, for instance, just
good for you. Hold on. Don't monologue. We're going to do a dialogue here. It's going to be back and forth, all right? First of all, you got a nice beard. Kudos to your beard. That beard takes work.
Thanks.
What do you do to it? Do you use any product in your beard? I don't. I just use cocoa butter. That's about it. But you got a much bigger beard than I do.
I don't use any product. People have recommended it, but I can't stand the oil and stuff in my beard or on my face. So.
I get it. Like, I used only the smallest amount of cocoa butter. Now, let me ask you, when you take a shower, what I do, I take the shampoo from my head and then I use it on I shampoo my beard. I don't just use like soap or anything. Do you shampoo your beard like I do or no?
Sometimes, but I try to only do that like once a week. It seems like it removes a lot of the natural oils, and I don't like to do that. Strip it, as often as I'm washing my hair. But
all right. So now we had a little bit of small talk. So let's get down to it. So, all right. So you claim to kind of be like an open guy. You seem to be very interested in science. I'm very interested in science myself. I've pretty much dedicated my life to it up to this point. So we should be in for like a good little conversation here. All right. So go ahead. You said you're open to science. You're open to discovering the reality. We'll take you on your word that you're interested in truth. But what I find, GraFfix, is most people really aren't interested in the truth because the truth has consequences. The truth is not without consequence. All right. Because there's benefits and privileges that come from living in the illusion and the delusion that was created for us. So the question is, like our friend from the movie A Few Good Men says, can you handle the truth? Really? Can you handle it? I don't know. It's a worthy question.
Honestly, me personally, I don't know. And that has probably been my main hiccup with this whole thing. I've always considered myself to be fairly intelligent. And it is hard for a person like that to accept that they may have been wrong about something their entire lives, or even just sold something that was really kind of absurd from the jump, but just through group think and the entire system were brought to believe it. So yeah, it is. I mean, it is. I think it's hard for a lot of people, but I think it's hard for people that either are intelligent or think they're intelligent, especially to accept that they may have been wrong about something for years. So.
Well, I think a lot of people here at this channel could probably relate to what you just said. All right, before we get into the science, maybe let's talk a little bit about psychology, things like that, and why we believe things, and more specifically about you. You don't have to dox yourself. You don't have to give yourself away. You appear to be in a home. You look like you live in a home, which is like, you realize not everybody lives in a home. Some people assume it. I have people like my friend Wobbly Boost. He lives in a tent in the Australian outback. Our friend Nuba here, he lives in Australia. He seems to kind of be homeless based on what he said. My friend Mitch that comes here, Mars Life, shout out to Mars Life. He's kind of a vagabond. He lives in his car. So we can't all assume. You appear to have a nice home. I'm going to assume you have a family. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, I do.
All right. So are you married?
No, I'm not married. I've been with my significant other for 12 years or so.
Gotcha. So you're not married legally, but you're kind of married almost like consciously and stuff. With your partner.
I consider myself, to be, for all intents and purposes, to be married, but legally, no.
Right on. You have kids and stuff?
Yes. Yep.
How old are your kids?
I've got a 21-year-old, a 17, or I've got a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
All right. So you're prolific. Good for you, man. That's you know, they say the best part about kids is making them. A lot of fun. Seems like you've had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
All right. You seem like a pretty legit, like my impression of you, and I'm pretty good with this, is like you're probably a legit dude. You probably are a hard worker, an intelligent guy. Whatever you do, you're probably good at it, and you probably are intelligent. You said you consider yourself intelligent. You kind of have a bright look to you. You look like there's something going on upstairs. Are you a craftsman? Are you a tradesman? Are you a professional?
I got a degree from a state university in computer science when I was 22, a bachelor's, and I worked. We built out the first wireless distributed network in Arkansas. Then after that, I worked as a network administrator for a few years. I then shifted to writing code. I wrote software for several years. About the past 4 years, I write firmware, which is basically the software that makes the hardware work. So,
Geez. So with a beard like that, you're a computer guy. Interesting. You look more of like an outside type of guy. I pictured you more of like a maybe like a structural engineer type of thing. I pictured you on work sites and stuff. But okay, you're a computer guy, so you know about code and stuff. All right, so let's get into it. So you have enough education. You know, kind of like me, dude. There's a point of education where we're dangerous because I'm just speaking generalities, not about you, but we're educated in their system. We think we know things. We accept certain things as fact without understanding that they're very likely a belief. And it puts us in a tough situation because one can consider themselves intelligent. But as you mentioned previously, to admit that we may have been wrong about a previously held understanding is difficult. All right, so let's get into it, man. Where do you want to start with this whole thing? I don't want to just take it where I want to go with it. I don't want to assume things about your thought process. I want to maybe have a natural discourse and see where it goes.
I mean, the reason that I brought up electricity wasn't a red herring. It's just because it's the only topic that I feel like, I mean, I've spent my life on, I'm educated on. I feel like I have enough authority to discuss it with firm thought. I don't like to get outside of my realm of what I actually understand. Electricity is something that I can look at inside of a circuit, and I can use math to prove to you how it's going to behave. And that's just something to me that's a fundamental law of science. It's also something that was theory.
It's a phenomenon. Well, it's a phenomenon. It's observable. We could observe electricity in action. We could observe its function. You can even observe it visually sometimes when it makes a spark, which is kind of its plasmatic form. But I hear what you're saying. So, okay, but my question would be, how does that relate to the topic of the globe, the heliocentric model, and et cetera? Because many of us have specialties. I studied many things. I studied biomedicine for a very long time. You may not know, I had a career in audiology. I have a doctorate in the field of audiology. I have an advanced level understanding of acoustics, sound, mechanical energy. If you want to talk about electricity, I, for many years, was practicing reading the neurochemical electrical energy that comes from the human body using amplitrodes, okay? So I have an advanced understanding of electricity too, even on a biomechanical levels. But what does that really have to do with the conversation? It would be comfortable for us to both talk about our expertise, So we can sit here and talk about electricity all day long, but I don't understand what that has to do with the globe and the heliocentric model.
Well, it doesn't directly, but like I said, it's science. And it's something that, 150 years ago was just theory. So it's science that has gone along a path to advance to where we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now if you weren't holding a device in your hand or, had a laptop.
So you seem to be presenting the same argument that I said when you were coming up that I conjectured that you would present, is that because a computer exists and because computer is advanced technology, we can categorize that as science. So you've personified science away from a method of discovery, and you've placed it into an institution. And then you're telling me that because science is able to create computers using principles around electricity and other types of mechanics, that because science is going to tell us we live on a globe, that we should believe it. Now, I
No,
could
I'm
point
really,
out the underlying fallacy behind it. Go ahead.
no, I'm really not associating it with anything to do with the globe on any level. I'm just saying that it's and it's science. So I mean, I'm not just generalizing it. It's science, a field of science. It's a genre or a flavor of science, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it's something that started at a point when we didn't understand it, where it killed you. I mean, the earliest form of a capacitor may have very well been the Ark of the Covenant. So it started at a point that we didn't understand, and then we brought it to a point where we do understand it at least enough to make it function and use it for our advantage. I'm not saying this applies to the globe on any level, and I'm not here to even really challenge the globe thing. I'm really just looking to get something in my head that will make me grasp it. That's really what I'm trying to do here.
Okay. I like this conversation. So let's talk about science. I love science, particularly applied physical science, because it's demonstrable. We can measure things. So can we agree that science is based on certain principles, and amongst them is the scientific method, where we are able to observe things, measure things, and through the process of experimentation, we can prove things? Isn't that what science is in its most foundational form?
Sure.
All right, let's talk about science. We can agree that science involves experimentation and involves certain principles, the empirical method, things like that. All right, so I guess here's my point. If you want to talk about this subject, you need to do what I did, all right? Because you seem like you're interested in it. I mean, you come here often and you bring it up. What you don't want to do is try to prove what you think I'm presenting as theory. You have to look at logically first and say, who's making the claim? Now, all observable reality, okay? So say you and I were born, GraFfix, into like a tribe that exists untouched by, current technology and somewhere in the middle of South America. We would observe a world around us, right? We would use our senses to observe a world. We would see the sun come and go. We would see that the heavens move. All right. We would see things fall down. All right. We'd be able to travel to different places. But then we have some information being told to us that says that it's not the sky that's moving, it's us that's moving. They say that there's things fall down for a reason, and they tell us why. They're making a claim. They say, we can see the sun change and the seasons change. There's an organization and information being presented telling us why. That would be considered the claim. Well, if we look at the principles of logic, can you and I agree that the burden of proof is on those making the claim, not those who would oppose the claim that's presented? Can you and I at least agree on that foundational principle? And if not, let's talk about that.
No, I can agree to that. I guess my main thing with a lot of this NASA stuff is, like, say for instance, I think you were talking earlier about.
Hold on, man. Hold on. You can say what you want, but you're taking we're at a certain point in the conversation, and you're doing something that typically is done when I'm in these conversations, is you'll discourse away from the point that we're on to something that's a non sequitur, which completely tends to derail the conversation, because I thought we were talking about science at this point, and more particularly, I thought we were talking about logic and who has the burden of proof. But it seems as though you did concede that the burden of proof is on the one making the claim. So, okay, we can move on. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just saying that, NASA is underfunded. People really don't even necessarily like it in general. You can go out on the street right now, ask 100 people about, for instance, the news you presented today that I think was something deGrasse Tyson said yesterday. They've discovered some planet, blah, blah, blah. Out of the 100 people that you ask, you're not going to get very many that have even heard that. Now, if you go ask them about something that, you know, has happened politics-wise or something like that, something that I feel like is really more relevant for population control, thought control, everybody's going to almost know what's going on with, you know, Trump or the, you know, whatever is going on there. I just have to, at a point, question why the elaboration to do all this on their end, you know, like, you know, they say it might be a holograph. Where's the power supply for this? Just for me as an engineer type of guy, that's one of my main questions. If you're powering some sort of holographic apparatus that can produce this sun and these stars and all this on this.
Hold on, man. Hold on. You're assuming and you're begging the question. You're straw manning. You're scattergunning. Hold on. Dude.
I'm just asking some questions. So.
Hold on. We were talking about science. You wanted to talk to me about science. Now you're conjecturing. Why would they lie? How could they present a hologram? Who said hologram? Who said projection? That's it. That's a straw man, dude. You wanted to talk about.
I heard. I'm not. You know, like I said.
Right, because you're straw manning and that's what you do in my chat all the time.
I don't
straw man. Hold on. You're trying to assume what I think, but we were having a conversation about science. Even more importantly, we were having a conversation about applied physical science. All right, you took it to a crazy fucking place. What you really started off with is why the lie, how the lie, and then you strawmanned possible explanations of what this place might be other than what they're saying. Let's bring it back to science. You want to know why somebody like me has certain thoughts and feelings towards the subject and certain understandings. I'm trying to tell you about applied physical science, and you just went off in a crazy direction. Can we bring it back? We were talking about science. You went and talked about a bunch of other stuff.
Right. So now you've dialogued for a minute about let's bring it back. Are you going to bring it back, or I'm just sitting here listening? So.
I'm trying to bring it back to science, dude. Applied physical science. All right, so now. So I'm going to bring it back to what I was saying before. Our observable reality is showing us certain things. Everything that we can measure, everything that we can test, everything that we could do experimentation on is showing us certain things. But we're being presented with a model and a theory that goes against all demonstrable, objective, testable reality. That's why I'm talking about science, because when we talk about science, this globe model is easily debunked. That's why I want to talk about science. I don't want to talk about more theories about what the universe could be, a hologram, a projection. I don't want to talk about our assumed funding of NASA, what they tell us, because you and I, we don't know how much NASA's being given or if they're given anything. We're told how much money's NASA's given. Whether you feel it's underfunded or overfunded is conjecture. We can't prove any of that, but what can we do? We can test the world around us. You and me can test it. We can do scientific experiments. We can look at others' experiments. We could review their research. We can make observations. Even if it's not an experiment, we can use observations to make certain understandings about the world around us. There's things we can do. That's what I like to talk about. All right. Now, you want to talk about the funding of NASA? We can have that conversation, but it'll probably be not very fruitful. I'd rather talk about science, and I'd rather talk about observations and measurements, because that's how you debunk the globe. And people don't get to be where I am and many of my listeners unless they've tried to debunk the globe. And that's what you do. You're given a theory and you try to prove it. Try to prove the globe. And that's what I would ask you, GraFfix. What are your favorite globe proofs? What proves the globe for you?
Like I said, I mean, you almost seem to still be approaching this as if I came in here saying that we live on a globe, and I know that's a fact, and that's not what I've done here. So I don't really know what you're looking at for me related to the globe. I don't have any way to prove it. If I had a way to prove it, don't you think that that would have been like the first thing I said when I came in here? You know, that's obviously why I said I don't know. You know, I think another problem with this whole thing is that, you know, a lot of people aren't really clear on what they're being presented as a theory and what is fact. You know, a lot of these scientific holdings are presented as theory. You know, they're not just putting them out there as their flat fact. I don't know about the stuff related to flat Earth, but it's quite common that science is presented at first as a theoretical, you know, instance, and then it propagates over time to some sort of provable, demonstrable, you know, what we would call, I guess, exact science. So,
well, here's the thing, GraFfix. The globe is not being presented as theory; it's being presented as fact. To the point where they're telling us that they're going to send astronauts back to the moon in a year and a half to 2 years with the Artemis mission. They're telling us that there's satellites in space. They're telling us there's an international space station. The globe isn't being presented as theory. It's being presented as reality and fact, okay? So it's not
I know
theory.
this. So for fact, I know that I can put my telescope outside, and if I put my camera on and I wait until the right time and I follow what they say is the space station, that I can track it and get a still shot of it. I also know that I can take my ham radio and I can do the same thing. I can follow it overhead with a directional antenna, and I can pull radio from it. I can pull CCTV from it. You know, so I mean, I don't, you know, like if something's there, and because of my experience with electricity science, microwave communications, etc., I'm able to demonstrate to myself that something is there. Distance, you know, from me, I don't know. Speed, you can kind of calculate, but which one of us is moving, I don't know. You know, so there's some factors there, some variables that I don't have. But and as far as satellites too, you know, I just you know, this all kind of goes to the holograph thing. I just it's hard for me to grasp how it all works. I'm trying to look at it from an outer scale. Like if I were going to build this for a civilization to live inside, how would I do it? I guess is how I'm trying to wrap my brain around it. So you know, maybe I'm just approaching it wrong. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, okay, so you're telling me you're observing things in the sky. You observe what's been presented to you as an international space station. You're observing that through a telescope, and you see it moving in the sky. Okay, great. I get it. I hear everything what you're saying. Everything that you're saying. You're saying you could sense electrical signals from it. Okay, I don't quite understand the mechanisms behind that, but I'll just accept that. That using a ham radio, you can pick up electrical signals from the supposed ISS. I'm not really sure about that, but I guess my question.
Get right on NASA's website. APRS is the protocol you use. So
On NASA's website. What do you mean by that?
NASA, if you contact the International Space Station using a ham radio, NASA will send you a little certificate. You know, it's basically a contact. It's kind of what part of ham radio.
Gotcha. And they talk to you? They talk to you?
No, so you're not. APRS is just a location based, but they do usually do like once a month. They will do like a direct talk. It's more of a you feed up a question and they feed down a video that is a CCTV. It's really primitive. Frame rate is you know, like I think it's like 8 frames a second or something, but really primitive video they'll beam back to you with response. Right. Normally it's to like elementary school students, stuff like that.
So what you're telling me, yeah. So you're able to observe and measure. You're able to observe something in the sky moving.
Yes.
And you're able to measure some type of electrical response through the ham radio.
But not with my naked eye. Not with my naked eye in either case, and not with even with the ham radio. You know, you're only dealing with a brief window that you can contact it. I mean, you're talking about literally like 45 seconds. With the naked eye, you've got to use a camera, you know, and you've got to hopefully catch it within, you know, so.
I gotcha. So I guess my question would be, what does that prove either way regarding a sphere Earth or a flat Earth? that we're observing something in the sky that we could see with a telescope and pick up with a ham radio. How does that prove anything either way? How does it prove or disprove anything about the shape?
I think it proves a couple of things. I think it proves, first of all, the fact that it's coming around periodically.
Coming around? What do you mean by that?
Well, the fact that it passes us periodically indicates some sort of repetitiveness. The fact that we can calculate where it's at indicates that there's obviously something known about how it's traveling. And I really, as far as factually, I think that's really all I can just from that information.
So is it possible that they put something up there, they call it the ISS, and they realize that when people see it go over, just saying, is it possible that it would lead to a situation where people can confirm their bias in the globe? And then I would ask you again, is it possible that there could be a deception going on, and that people would have an interest in deceiving people into thinking like you're thinking?
Okay, now, so that's a kind of a two-part question. But
hold on, I wanted to talk about science. I wanted to talk about demonstrable, applied physical science. And we're talking about things that we're seeing in the sky that we can't prove. You're telling me that we could observe this thing in the sky that they're calling the ISS with a telescope, and then it's moving and we could see it. But wanted to talk to you about science, about applied physical science, and you're bringing me to the sky and things that we were visualizing.
I'm just having a conversation here, dude. You know, I don't know if I'm not.
So am I. So am I.
Seems like every time that we speak about, you know, if you've got a certain direction, then go ahead.
Well, I'd like to see, to me, because when I look at things that we can prove, if I want to say, okay, how do I prove things about the world that I live in?
That's what got it to this. I said I can prove that I can contact that thing and I can take a picture of it. So those were the proofs.
Right. But I'm talking about the only way to really prove anything is the scientific method and the methodology around it. That's why I like to talk about science, because you got to understand something, GraFfix. People come to me and they say, "Don't you know about science? Don't you know about science, Z?" And they'll personify science. I go, let's talk about science right now. I want to talk about science. And then people just then want to bring me away from the science that they wanted to talk about previously, which I find is funny. It's sort of slippery when you want to bring up science, and then I bring up science, and then you want to talk about observations. I'm talking about science, dude.
I was just following along with the path of the conversation. As far as science, I haven't strayed from it. Initially, I just brought up that.
All right, let's talk about science then. Let's talk about gravity. All right.
The only science that I have a real firm grasp in, if you want to call it science. So I brought up electricity as being something that I have a particular expertise in. That's it.
All right. Do you know anything about gravity, or how's this? Do you know anything about the theory of gravitation?
I'm pretty sure that gravity is a scheme invented by the Jews to steal loose change. So.
To steal what?
To steal people's loose change.
Oh, so it's a joke. So basically, gravity makes money fall to the ground, and then the
yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke.
You don't like the Jews, huh?
No, I'm not even pretending. It was just a joke. That's all I had for gravity.
Gotcha.
Not against Jews.
So let me ask you, what do you know about the theory of gravitation? How much do you know about it, if anything?
Okay, so I mean, I all I know about. Well, I mean, I know obviously what we've all been taught in school, that, you know, we're supposedly in some sort of orbit, and that orbit produces a gravitational pull. That gravitational pull is also influenced by other orbiting bodies such as the sun and the moon, which produces stuff like tidal effects, all different types of wind movements, weather patterns, et cetera, or at least that's what I've been told. So that's what I know.
Well, what they actually say gravity is the attraction of objects towards each other due to Einstein's theory of general relativity and the bending and warping of space-time. So what they say is objects attract other objects due to their mass, and the way they bend space and time. All right. But let's just keep it basic. It just means that objects attract other objects based on their math. All right. We can keep it simple for that. That's really what gravity is brought to us. But I ask you this, because you seem to be a guy that could think. They tell us that gravity overcomes what's called the centrifugal force of us spinning. So if we're spinning, there's a force that's created that's going to want to make us fly off, right? Can we agree to that? Anything that spins is going to create a centrifugal and centripetal force that's going to make you want to fly off of it. We agree with that?
Centripetal force.
Right, centripetal force, exactly. So we're told that gravity overcomes that. It would have to, right? The gravity would have to equal and be inversely related to that force that's pulling us off. Call it centripetal force, centrifugal force, however you want to look at it. But either way, we can assume, based on their theory of gravitation, that those forces would have to offset each other. Which, can you agree with that, at least conceptually?
Yeah, that would be what would make sense.
Right. And we're told that because we live on a sphere, that the gravitational force is equal no matter where you are in that sphere, because it's round, or it's because it's spherical, I should say. Based on the theory of gravitation, everything would be pulled towards the center of gravity, which would be the center of the Earth. So we can agree that based off their model, gravitation, the force of gravitation would be equal around the so-called globe. Can we agree on that, at least conceptually?
I mean, yeah, with obviously, I guess at that point there would probably be minor variances for, thickness of the planet at certain points, if that were. But yeah, as far as on a broad level, yeah, that would make sense.
All right, fair enough.
For what I've been.
So let me ask you this question, and the whole world could watch as Z destroys the globe right here, is that if they tell you that the gravitational force is what offsets this centrifugal or centripetal force, and that the force of gravitation is constant around the globe based off its shape and its mass, then how can gravity, which is constant, be what's overcoming this centripetal force if we know that that's centripetal and centrifugal force is different and varies depending on where you are on the globe, to the point that it's maximum at the so-called equator and zero at the poles?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay, you understand? So if gravity is overcoming the centrifugal force of 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, how is that same gravity having the same effect on that physical body when the centripetal and centrifugal force at the poles is literally zero? It makes no sense. It debunks the entire globe. This is why I'm trying to talk to you about science, dude. Because when I'm trying to talk to you about applied physical science and how it debunks their model, this is what I'm talking about. Let me ask you another question about.
I'm listening, but the whole thing, like even what you just said, it almost seems like it would lend to a globe model.
How more so?
Well, if you were closer to the poles, you're less in the area where the spin is occurring, so the force is going to be less.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right.
Work with the gravity model, but we don't know. There could be something else there that's offsetting that. Maybe it's naturally balanced.
Right, but they tell you it's gravity. That's why I'm saying it debunks their model, because it could be a million things why things fall down. I don't have to tell people why things fall down to say their theory of gravitation is stupid. I'm debunking their model in front of you every single morning. You just don't want to see it, GraFfix.
No,
let me ask you another one. All right, let me ask you another one.
I don't watch every morning, but
okay, well maybe you should.
To be quite honest with you, from what I do see out of you, there's not a whole lot of stuff like this where I'm actually getting, okay, this is the meat and potatoes. This is,
Okay, well, you're
to watch
here and
your
we're talking
show,
about meat and
probably get through.
potatoes. So as you want to tell me how I don't talk about meat and potatoes as we're currently talking about the meat and potatoes, what's the point? Are we not talking about meat and potatoes? You seem like you want to distract me from it.
No, you see, Jesus, man, this is so crazy how you talk.
Guys, you see the cog
I
disc?
came
I
here.
appreciate you,
I don't
GraFfix,
watch
because
you every morning.
you're
I
evidencing.
haven't
Hold
dug
on.
through your stuff to try to dig up what you say. All I'm saying is, out of the 20 minutes or so that I do catch you a morning, I don't normally get stuff like this. Normally, when you've got people up, it's like lately it's been the John guy. I don't know, the guy he's gonna fly to the fucking poles or whatever. So my apologies for not having the information, but no, not trying to detract from the discussion at all. Just agreed with you on the gravity thing, and I'm open to anything else you might have to say.
Well, where would you like to go? What would you like to talk about next? Because I can talk about this forever, man.
I guess maybe another question that I would have, I guess, is anytime I try to talk to other people about this, it's very hard to get any kind of firm set of this is what we believe versus what others believe, So, like, for instance, we talked about satellites, etc., moving around, they're in the sky. And we're saying that this is all some sort of false presentment. Me, from an engineering standpoint, my question would be, scientifically, how would you power something like that? And also, if you were going to produce a system like this, what's the intent behind it? What's the intent with tidal flows and things like that? Why have all of this?
The intent? Why does a phenomenon need an intent? Hold on. Why does a phenomenon need an intent? We just observe natural phenomena, and then we use certain methods to try to explain them.
I'm talking about the intent behind them presenting us with theories as fact. I'm not really talking about the intent.
So you're asking why the lie, which everybody does. You want to jump to why the lie? What does it matter why they're lying? Let me ask you something.
Because people don't even really care about NASA. That's the thing. Like, this is a topic that a lot of people, general public, doesn't even care or know about. And it just seems to me like they would have a lot better places to try to manipulate. And also, I question what the benefit would be to them beyond just saying we can make these people believe anything, I guess.
Right. So you're asking, why would they lie? What would it benefit them? What's their motive in presenting a deception?
Sure.
Because somebody like me comes out and says, look, you're presenting a model that I could debunk, which means you're deceiving me. And then you're going to say, well, why are they deceiving us? Why?
I'm just curious. If
All
you
right.
have a
well, I would say to you, why does it matter? Why? I can give you my speculation on why would they. I'm not a psychopath. I don't know why somebody would lie.
Because if you can discern why they're doing it and you can discern what their intent is, then that may give you more information about what exactly.
Try. I'd rather not jump to conclusions. I'd rather stick to demonstrable, applied physical science and demonstrable reality than to conjecture why somebody would lie to me. Why do you lie? Have you ever lied, GraFfix? I have. I've lied in my life. I promoted the benefits of lying this morning. I actually told my audience they should lie to people in certain circumstances. So you and I both admit that we lie, right? Why do you lie?
I mean, I don't anymore, but when I was younger, if I lied...
You don't lie? Come on, you lie. I guarantee you've lied at least once this week.
No, I don't believe so.
All right, so why have you lied before then?
Generally, it's to benefit myself in some way.
Right. You lie to benefit yourself in some way. Maybe to protect something that you value. You lie to benefit yourself. Sure. So you're asking me why the lying? Maybe they benefit from it, whoever's perpetrating it, for whatever reason. Why do I need to know what the benefit is?
I'm not saying you need to. I'm just asking a question, dude. Like, it's not. I'm not trying to corner anybody. I'm just asking you.
Did I say you're trying to corner me? I thought we were having discourse. Well, let me ask you. Why
Just
do
ask.
you? All right. So let's just take a thought experiment. Let's assume that guys like me are correct and they fucking lied about the globe. They're lying about space and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Let's take a thought experiment. Why would you conjecture that they would lie about such a huge thing? Why would they do it? Let's say it's real. Let's say Z's right. Let's say Z's right that the Nile River couldn't exist on a globe, that the theory of gravitation is actually impossible. Let's just take a thought experiment. Why do you think they would lie about it?
I really don't. I've thought. I really don't know why. I mean, I guess the intent could be to keep us. It doesn't make any sense, because it's not like they're placing even limitations. Like, you can't go off planet. Really, the only limitation for somebody like you or me right now is money. We could build a rocket today if we had money. We just don't, So it's not even like there's constraints being put around
There's
it.
not. Have you ever looked at what's called the Antarctic Treaty, signed in
Yes, I have. It
1958?
was
Right.
signed by every country.
So here's the thing. Well, I find it
Hundreds of
interesting because
thousands of people travel to Antarctica every year.
right. Can they do it freely? No. They have to apply to it, and they have to go through certain governmental approved companies to certain governmental approved areas. So here's my point. Hold on, we're having discourse. Don't just try to railroad me.
Nobody's real. I'm trying to answer you.
I didn't ask a question, but I'm about to say I asked one now. Why did you hold on? You just said that there's no restrictions on us traveling, but then admitted that you know of the presence of the Antarctic Treaty. What prevents us from freely exploring beyond the 60th South Parallel? So which is it? Can we travel freely or can't we?
I am not aware of any restrictions on Antarctic travel outside of where there may be military installations or weather installations. And how does the Antarctic Treaty specifically apply to that? Not even every country signed the treaty, for one thing. I'm not sure.
It applies because you said we have no restrictions on travel other than money. I pointed out to you the Antarctic Treaty, and that have people that have tried to independently explore beyond the 60th South Parallel, and were met by military resistance, which is recorded. You can't independently travel, and you know that's true, and you're being disingenuous because
I haven't seen that.
If you and I had billions of dollars and we tried to organize a trip to Antarctica, that we would meet governmental and military resistance. You know that, and you admitted it because you know the existence of the Antarctic Treaty. Hold on, GraFfix. So when you say we have unfettered travel and the only restriction is money, you know that's not true.
Well, first of all, I was discussing space, and you've now diverted to Antarctica. So
you did. You're the one who said we have unfettered travel. You're the one who said we have unfettered travel.
I said we can go to space.
We can go to space. So you and I can go to space, an unproven place.
Here's a country that didn't sign
So you're going to just posit that you and I can go to space.
Here's a country that didn't sign the Antarctic Treaty. Mexico.
Here they go. Here's a
country that didn't sign the Antarctic Treaty.
I'm going to put you in the back. Because you can't control yourself, GraFfix. If you can't control yourself, I'm going to have to control you. See what happens, guys? It's emotional. I'm going to bring you up, GraFfix. Just relax. Let me talk to my audience. What you're looking at is an indoctrinated mind going through a defense mechanism, right? He's going through a defense mechanism. He's employing one subconsciously, all right? This is what happens. Look, I'm about to bring you up, GraFfix. Relax. You're just apparently not going to let me talk on my own show and try to talk over me. It's all right. He chose to come up here, and we're having discourse. This is going to help people. Even if it doesn't help him, it's helping somebody. We were programmed using our emotions. They gave you a space presentation from when you were very young. They got you connected to Star Wars and stories about space travel and astronauts that went to the moon in 1969 and achieved the pinnacle of human engineering and technology. The the pinnacle of human spirit, the ability to travel to the moon. They played on your emotions so that when somebody like Z comes along and starts literally countering everything they said to you using logic and all objective reality, one reacts emotionally, as we see with our friend GraFfix here. All right. Now, GraFfix, you're the one who says we can travel unfettered. You're assuming we could travel unfettered to space if we had all the money. That's an assumption. There's no evidence. I gave you a realistic thing. We know that if we had enough money, we can have a ship, we can have an airplane, we can have a Zeppelin, and we could go towards Antarctica. That's something we know. But you're trying to divert the topic you brought up about unfettered travel, about space. When I bring up something that's actually realistic and observable, that we can travel south away from the North Pole and away from the North Star, and that we're restricted from even doing that here on Earth. And you want to talk to me about travel into the fucking space as you're smoking a cigarette because you're triggered. What are you doing smoking cigarettes? You know that's not good for you. You know I'm going to get... Have you watched me enough to know I'm going to get on you about the cigarette thing? Why are you smoking cigarettes?
Throw me out. I don't give a shit. If you want to throw me back out,
I'm not going to throw you out for smoking a cigarette, but I'm going to say, why are you fucking smoking cigarettes? You're a father of 4. You're a young man. You're smoking cigs.
Nasty habit, and I need to quit, you know, but I don't really want to get into that.
All right. Stop doing that. Stop smoking.
Yeah, I would love to, and I will at some point, but...
What do your kids say about your smoking? Did they get on you about it? They say, Dad, we love you. Why are you killing yourself? What are you doing? Come on.
Yeah,
you at least have one kid that's highly upset that you're smoking.
Yeah, my son really hates it.
Right.
And of course the wife too. She quit like 10 years ago. So.
Oh, your wife quit and you still smoke. That's tough because you both started off smoking. She quit. And then you're like, fuck, now I got to quit? Like, what am I going to do with that?
I was the one that instituted the quitting. It was when the vapes first came around and all that. And, you know, she picked it up, the vape, for like 3 months and just completely stopped. And I didn't. So.
You know, it's funny. I've spoken about this before. I was married before. I don't know if you know that. My ex-wife was a cigarette smoker. When we got together, I kind of convinced her to put the cigarettes down, and she switched to vaping. Which I don't know if it's any better or not. Interestingly enough, within a year, I picked up my own vaping habit. I never smoked a cigarette in my life, but just being around her vaping, and then I picked it up. And I understand why people smoke. The effects of the nicotine, I found, not only to be pleasurable, but they helped me focus. They did help with my thought processes and stuff. I understand why people smoke, but all right, we'll get beyond the smoking. Good for you for at least talking about it. All right.
Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about? You wanted to talk about space travel. Where we left off, you said you were basically...
I was just trying to, you know, demonstrate that, you know, someone like Musk, who is just basically a tool bag, is able to put all kinds of stuff into the firmament, or whatever you'd like to call it.
Is he, though? You believe that he's doing that? Do you have proof that he's doing any of that?
I've seen the launches, but I really know.
You've seen rockets going...
Richard Branson. Now, someone like Branson with Virgin, you could buy that. You know, anybody can buy that. I've seen the video of it. I'm sure, you know, these people have friends. You could go talk to these people. Or if you had a couple million, you could go yourself.
Go where? Do you know where they say Branson's going? They admit that he's not going into low Earth orbit. They say he's going 62 miles. Okay. So let's just assume that what Branson's doing is real. Let's just assume that. But so what? So he's going real high with a rocket. There's no 0G. They're not floating. They're just descending.
Yeah, have you not seen the videos? Yeah, they're definitely in 0G. And I mean,
I've seen a lot of videos of people floating. Have you ever seen videos from what's called a parabolic flight, also called a 0G plane?
Yeah, that they use to train for NASA. Yep.
Right. There's people floating. There's videos of people floating, right? They look an awful lot similar to the Richard Branson videos.
I'm sure, yeah.
What's the point, GraFfix? See, what you're evidencing to me is you're taking a presentation And then you're using what's presented to you to confirm your bias of globe, which very likely is an emotionally based bias that you have based on things that you don't want to look at. You're probably a man who's not very in touch with his emotional space and his inner space. That's one of the reasons why you smoke, by the way. You're probably not very in touch with your internal world.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
Hmm.
You know, anything's possible, but you know, I really don't see how that's relevant to this discussion. You know, we're talking about travel, and also another thing with the Antarctica thing. Mexico never signed that treaty. There's a ton of countries that didn't sign that treaty.
So
All of
what?
those citizens aren't under restrictions to
No, that's
travel.
not how it
I have
goes.
friends that have been to
You're
Antarctica.
reading it wrong. It's not about how. It's not about which citizens. It's about what countries are going to uphold the border. It's which countries have claim over the area of Antarctica and who's going to protect it. It's not about who's restricted to go based off their nationality. You got it wrong. Listen, we're 8 minutes over. It was good talking to you, GraFfix.
It
I
just
give it to you for
basically
coming
says
up
that
here.
Antarctica is to be used for peace only. That's really the entire treaty, and
Oh,
certain amount
really? You're going to interpret it for me when I've gone through it? It says you can't travel
peaceful
there
use,
because it's a.
freedom of
It
scientific and
says it
cooperation.
says you're restricted from traveling there for certain #reasons. It says without governmental approval, oversight, and licensure that you cannot go there, which means it's not free to travel. Okay, but listen, it was a good conversation. GraFfix, come talk to us again. All right. You have any final thoughts for the audience today?
No, it was good talking to you though. I'm glad that I finally came up and you know, at least got some words out.
Much love, dude. It's nice talking to you.
Yep, have a good one.
Hey guys, his GraFfix. He came up this morning. He's been in my chat for a long time. He came up. Good for him. Kudos.